NCBI Labs.
So it's good to be back with our 38th NCBI Labs live event. And on today's show, we have a regular team of Dunne, Sean Doran, J.D. Morgan, and myself, Jude Maher, here to talk about the technology that can really make a difference to you. One of the pieces of technology we've spoken about in the past, of course, is the Seeing AI app. And it's definitely one of those apps that's got a lot of fans, rightly so, considering how powerful it is and how versatile that app is. But one of the drawbacks with Seeing AI is that it has only been available for Apple devices, which is quite obviously for those of Android persuasion. So what alternatives are there? Well, in just a moment, Daniel Dunne is going to be talking us through the features of Google Lookout, and we'll see just stacks up in feature. I look forward to that in just a few moments. Of course, for questions on Google Lookout, you can get in touch with us throughout the show on labs@ncbi.ie using the question panel connected through Microsoft Teams. A bit later on, though, we're going to be continuing our series of Meet the Team interviews as well. And this week, we're going to talk to NCBI's Advocacy and Communications, June Tinsley, and we'll find out a bit about our involved in her role.
Sorry,
of course, we'll have our quick tips. And
sorry, Jude, your audio is unfortunately very crackling there. So maybe if you want to try and maybe rejoin there, we'll get you back on a good line. But I'll continue up reading here what's coming out on today's edition while you rejoin there, Jude. Obviously, myself will be looking at the Google Lookout app. And soon after that, then we'll be having our next installment of Meet the NCBI team, and June Tinsley will be along to talk to Jude, should I say, on that one. So we'll just check back in with Jude here at in a moment now, just to see is he back online. Unfortunately, to say it's his internet connection is a wee bit weak. So Jude, you're back.
Yeah. Let's hope that that's a little bit better. How does that sound?
Sounds a lot better, Jude. Great to have you back in full steam.
Changed network as well while I was at it, so hopefully that'll keep us going for the show. Very good. So you've gone through what the show entails anyway. We're talking to June Tinsley a little bit later on as well in the show, so we look forward to that as well. And of course, any questions or comments, you can use labs@ncbi.ie at any point through the show or afterwards if you want to give any feedback afterwards as well, or you can use the question panel on the right hand side if you're connecting through Microsoft Teams. Very good. So hopefully we'll be able to keep going without any further technical hitches, but we're going to get Daniel back on actually to join us talking about Google Lookout. How are you getting on, Daniel?
Very good, Jude. Thanks very much. Yeah, the Google Lookout. I've put together a little piece there today, which Sean will queue up now shortly. Just going through the app. I've put in, how to find it on the Google Play Store, how to download it, how to install it, and to use the various functions of it. But
yeah. So do you want to give us just a bit of an idea, of just what it is, what it's for, just before we play the video?
Yeah. So basically, what the app does is quite similar in what the Seeing AI does for the iPhone user. Like, it takes advantages of the camera, to scan, to scan pages, banknotes, objects, and describe them back as best as possible to the user. So there's 5 kind of main modes, not too dissimilar to Seeing AI. They have a few more. So you have the food labels mode, where it'll quickly identify packaged food by. It doesn't have to look for the barcode, but if it does find a barcode, it will it'll definitely give a better readout of what the product is, but it can identify it from the packaging. It can read a whole page of text with the documents mode, so quite similar to your documents mode on the Seeing AI. It'll alert you whether you should move left, move right, up, down, or closer or further out. Take a snapshot of that document, and Lookout will bring back that text onto the screen. Now, unfortunately, when it brings it back onto screen, you can't manipulate that text, like make it bigger like you can do on the Seeing AI, or instruct it to play it back, read it aloud for you. But I'm sure that's a feature Google will probably bring in on a new release, because it's been around since, I suppose, early 2019, and this is the second iteration, I suppose, of the app, and they really have made good improvements on this one. Again, just like short text on the Seeing AI, you've just a plain text mode on the Lookout, and it'll quickly skim for the text, and anything that it sees, it'll read it aloud. You have your currency mode, and your explore your room, or explore the scenario you're in, and it'll try and describe it back. But I think the best thing to do is maybe shoot straight across over to the video, and we'll dig a bit deeper into that.
Let's do that. Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a good old-fashioned overview video, so let's go and have a look at that. Thanks, Daniel.
So today we are going to take a look at the Google Lookout app here on the NCBI Labs live event. So I'm going to, first of all, access the Play Store to install the app.
Google search, voice search, Play Store.
And I double tap on that to open it.
Place for you, selected, for you, heading, out of pager. Play Store. Showing items 1 to 5 of 6. Double tap to activate. Showing items 1 to 3 of 14.
So I'm going to go for my search bar now.
Search for apps and games.
We're going to
double tap to activate.
Type in Google Lookout.
Search for apps and games. Edit box. G O V G L E space Google. Showing items 1 L showing O show O.
Okay.
Showing items 1 to 8 of 8.
So now I have Lookout by Google in my suggested results, so I'm going to select that.
Google Lookout by Google. Details for app. Lookout by Google. Keyboard hidden. Showing items 1 to 8 of 16.
And now I'm going to navigate down to the install button.
Content rating P. Install button.
And I'll
double tap to activate.
Double tap on that.
Showing items 1 to 6 of 15. Lookout by Google.
And depending on the speed of your internet, that should download rather quick and install.
Samsung Galaxy Watch disconnected from your phone.
Okay, sounds like my Galaxy Watch has just run out of battery there, so we got a notification while that was installing. But we'll ignore that, we'll continue on. And it takes a couple of moments to install this app, Lookout by Google, and a few moments more then just to install the app, and we shall open it then and take a look at the features.
Battery power 15%. Charge your phone or tap here to turn on power saving mode.
Okay, so after installing then we can go for the open button.
Suggest open button. Double tap to activate.
We'll double tap on that to activate that.
Lookout onboarding 1 of 3. Welcome to Lookout.
So after installing it, we're brought to the onboarding screen, just 3 sections on this screen. So we got our welcome to Lookout, and we'll listen to what it says next.
Before you begin, choose next to learn how your data is used and review tips for getting the most out of Lookout.
So just a couple of technical warnings.
Next button. Double. Lookout onboarding 2 of 3. Your data.
Okay, so this is just a bit of an explanation about your data.
Your images are processed and stored on your device. To improve how Lookout works, Google may log usage data and whether any accessibility services are on while you're using Lookout. The Google Terms of Service apply to the use of this app, and the Google Privacy Policy describes how data is handled. I consent to Google collecting data about my usage of Lookout and accessibility services for the purpose of providing and improving Lookout.
Okay.
Links available. Use tap with 3 fingers to view.
Okay, so there's 2 links in that, the Terms of Services and the Privacy Policy by Google. And if you choose to read those, just to be sure that you agree with them. And if you do, you proceed then to the I agree button. So we'll swipe down to get that, or swipe right to get to that.
No, thank you, button.
Swipe
Double
right
tap
again
to
to
activate.
agree.
I agree, button. Double. Lookout onboarding 3 of 3. Using Lookout.
So just a brief explanation now of how the Lookout app works. So we'll read that.
Lookout uses your device's camera to help read text and recognize objects. Remember that Lookout may misidentify things, so use normal caution and don't rely only on the app for information about what's around you. Choose Get Started to turn on the camera and start hearing about what's nearby. You can try Lookout's different modes for different activities, such as reading documents or identifying food products.
Okay, so just a little bit of a health warning. Now, while the app is good, it shouldn't be your sole reliance on information of what's about you. So it's just a help and a guide rather than an aid. So we'll swipe right and we'll go to our Get Started button.
Get Started button. Double. Allow Lookout to take pictures and record video while using the app button. Call recorder, not recording. Double tap to activate.
So what we have here is the permissions then that the app needs from the Android system to access the camera to take pictures and record video. So it's probably best to choose that permission to while it's using the app. If you choose only this time, you will get this question pop up every time you open the app, or if you deny the app access to the camera, it will not function. So we'll go with using the app, and we'll double tap then to agree.
Choose an account. Ticked. Cancel. Okay.
Okay,
button.
so
Double tap to activate.
that section then is just confirming the Gmail account. If you have more than one Gmail account on your phone, it asks you which one you want to use with the app. So I've just selected the default one here and ticked it and went down to the OK button now, and we'll double tap on that.
Tips for text mode. Point your camera at any text. If the text isn't read clearly, try rotating the device between landscape and portrait modes, or moving the text closer or farther away.
Okay, so with each section of the app, it'll bring up the tips. This one is the text mode. So it says point your camera at any text, and it'll read it as it comes into view of the camera. We can swipe right then just to get to don't show this tip again if you're familiar with that.
Not ticked. Don't show this again. Ticked.
And swipe right again down
Okay,
to the OK button.
Double tap to activate.
And we go OK then to commence our reading text.
Point your camera at ticked. Okay.
Okay, and double tap on that.
Lookout text mode. Change.
So we're just going to use the text mode
Hey.
first of all. And we're going to put it over a page of text here and see how the app works.
7. Page 18. My son had such an amazing experience, loved every second of it, friends for life and so much more, confident playing soccer at home with his club. Parent 2019. Camp Abilities, children aged 10 to 14 years. Camp Abilities is a 5-day residential, sport and physical activity camp for children with vision impairments. At camp, children have the opportunity to try new sports activities they might not have had the chance to do in the past. Chances are children often will not only find something they really enjoy, but their self-esteem will increase, giving them the confidence to advocate for themselves in their own community. Sir, our first Camp Abilities in Ireland, campers have taken part in rock climbing, canoe-kayaking, orienteering, soccer, goalball, judo, swimming, horse riding, and many, one or.
So that's just a sample there of the text mode reading from a page of text. Now what we'll do next is we'll switch over to the document mode, and we'll have a look at how that document will
Paul,
work.
Jean, 09156. Oops.
Okay,
N.
so after doing our text there, we're going to next take a look at the documents piece. So I'm
Say.
going to swipe left here.
Food labels beta. Select documents mode 4 of 5. Documents.
That should have been right. So I'll swipe right onto the documents and I'm going to
ANCG. Documents. Tips for documents mode. Hold your device in portrait mode, move it slowly, and listen for Lookout's real-time positioning guidance. You can also use the Take Snapshot button at any time to read the text in view, out of list. Not ticked, don't show this again. Ticked.
I'll just take that now to stop that tip coming back up.
Okay, button.
And we go to the
Okay.
OK button.
Lookout Documents Mode, Language, button, device right.
So
Move right.
I'm hovering over the page now.
Hold still. Scanned item details. Close details, button.
So it comes back instantly then with the results on page. So I'm just going to swipe right here to commence reading them.
Share, delete item, but your surprise plus for insuring with AXA. Dear Daniel, you get more with AXA, and this time we're not talking about insurance. Introducing AXA Plus, the loyalty card that gives you savings in leading stores around Ireland. We've teamed up with lots of your favorite shops, so you can save on fuel and car accessories, outdoor living, ferry travel and more, because we like to reward our valued customers. Delete item, button.
Okay, so that's just a starting part of the letter that I got in the mail this morning from the AXA insurance company. They've given me an AXA Plus card to use about the country if I could travel further than my 5k. But still, it's a nice thing to get, and it just goes to show then the power of the Google Lookout app and how it can read your letters as they come in the mail. So we'll exit from the document mode now, and next we'll check out the food labels.
Share, close details, button. To Lookout Documents Mode. To Daniel Dunne. Turn camera off. Take food labels beta mode, 2 of 5, in list, 5 items. Try taking a snapshot to scan what's in view. Move away. Food labels beta. Tips for food labels mode. Lookout can scan barcodes or recognize the front of a product. Try holding the product in front of your camera and slowly rotating it, out of list. Not ticked, don't show this again, tick box. Don't ticked. Okay, button. Okay.
We're going for the OK button now, so I was just told not to show that tip again.
Download data. To use food labels mode, you need to download more data. This can take up to 5 minutes. This mode and the camera are disabled until the download is complete.
Okay, so what it does now is it looks for my region and will download the data for the products that are in my region. So let's go have a look at that.
Not now. Download.
Okay, so we'll go down through the list here. I think we're going to have to go for the UK or Irish product list. It's set at United States English by default, so we'll scroll down real quick through the list until we find the UK or Ireland one.
Country. Only. Ticked. Not collapse. Not ticked. United Kingdom. English. In list. Country.
So I'm going to check the UK one. There's no Irish one on it presently, so we'll go with the Brit, which a lot of them are here in our Irish market.
Channels. 401. Stop. Pause. Back. Download start labels mode. Change country. Button.
Okay, so that's set now to the UK one, and I'll just let that download.
Pause. Pause. Down off.
Okay, so to clarify the box of Cheerios cereal that is in front of me, and this time we're going to try for a barcode.
Bisto gravy granules 170 grams.
That's absolutely perfect. Identified both of those products successfully.
Bisto gravy granules 170 grams.
And we'll try the barcode.
Product not recognized. Try rotating it to other sides.
Let's try it a bit closer.
Product not recognized. Nestle Cheerios 800 grams.
So off the barcode, it gave
Bisto gravy granules 170 grams.
It gave us a better outcome.
Product not recognized. Try rotating it to other sides. No product in view.
Next, we're going to try the currency.
No product. Text. Mode. Select. Text. No document. Currency. Mode. 5 of 5.
So
No product in view.
we'll try this one.
Currency. Tips for currency mode. Aim your camera at one banknote at a time. Lookout only works with some currencies at this time and does not recognize coins. Out of list.
So there's a little health warning there that it won't do coins, but it will do some notes. So let's try it out with some of the popular currencies that we have.
Not ticked. Don't show this. Ticked. Okay. Button. Okay.
So we'll go for the OK button now.
Lookout currency mode. Signed in as Daniel Dunne. Daniel Dunne. Turn camera off. Button.
So I'm just going to grab some notes here. And
$20.
nope, incorrect. We have 20 euros. So they currently don't have the euros supported, but let's try some American currency. I'm lucky enough to have
$20.
and it has correctly identified the US dollars, so that is quite good. Just unfortunate, I suppose, for us at the moment that the euro is not supported, but perhaps it's something that Google will add in the near future, as this app is only quite recent.
Stop. Button. Pause.
Next, now we're going to try the scene, the final option that's available in the app. So
Selected. Collapse. Selected. Currency. Document. Text. Food label. Explore beta mode. 1 of 5. Explore beta.
So this beta mode means that this portion of the app is still experimental, but we'll try it out and see how good we get this.
Explore beta. Tips for explore mode. Point your camera around you to hear about what's in your environment, such as people, objects, and text. Moving the device slowly or holding it still for a few seconds can help improve accuracy, though please note that this mode is still in beta and is less accurate than other modes. Out of list. Not ticked. Don't show this again. Tick box.
Okay.
Don't show this again. Ticked. Okay. Button. Okay.
The OK button now.
Lookout explore mode. Change language. Button. Computer keyboard. Computer keyboard with text. JXCV. Computer keyboard with text. 2 NCBI. Working for people TCD SOSTO.
Perfect. So that has successfully identified a personal computer that I have there, and it actually started to try and read out some of the lettering from the keys. But it just goes to show it's a good app from Google, in fairness. Nearly as good as the Seeing AI that is available on the Apple platform. And I'm sure with a bit of improvement that with the currency being including the euro in short time, it will be every bit as good as your Seeing AI alternative. So that's the Google Lookout app. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.
Very good. So thank you very much, Daniel Dunne, for taking us through that video overview of Google Lookout. And maybe just, if you're still with us there, Daniel, just maybe give us a bit of, maybe just even your own impressions of the app overall. How good is it? How usable is it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to apologise for some of our viewers there that just after I downloaded the product information, my phone for some reason lagged. It put the video a couple of seconds faster than, or my audio a bit faster than my picture, so it was kind of, you were listening to me a couple of seconds ahead of what was actually on screen for those of you viewing in, so apologies on that behalf. But yeah, the app in itself, I have to say, it's absolutely fantastic. There is scope for a little bit of improvement in the sense that when I took the document portion of the app, I brought it back on screen. Now, one thing I liked about it, where it's better than Seeing AI, is it comes back instant. All the OCR is done on your device, whereas in Seeing AI, you're waiting for it to process, and what's happening there is it's actually sending it back to the Microsoft server to be OCR done there and sent back to your phone. So it can be, with Seeing AI, it can be down to your internet connection speed, how quickly you get a result. But with the Google Lookout, it's bang, it's straight back, it's instant.
So that's interesting, actually. Yeah, because if you were having kind of gremlins like we've been having with the internet, with Seeing AI, that had hold it up. But I did notice when I was playing around with it a little bit myself, it's extremely fast on the Google Lookout, and so that you're saying that's basically because it's just being done on the device.
Yeah, it is. The conversion from the image to the text is being done in the device, so that really would help out somebody who might be living in kind of maybe a rural area with poor internet connection,
Yeah.
or doesn't have mobile data or something like that. So yeah, definitely, yeah, you have the result back straight away. One thing that does fall behind then on that aspect of it when compared to seeing AI is you can't increase the size of the font on screen. So you would probably have to bring in your select to speak. If you're a low vision user, like the text could be too small on screen for you to read back. So what you probably have to do then is use select to speak to highlight all that text and read it out.
Yeah.
In audio mode. So that is a drawback. I would like to see, what seeing AI has. You have the big A and the small a that you can toggle the size of the text on screen, and it does word wrapping and all that, and keeps it flowing nicely on the screen. But I think, look, that's something that I think Google will probably come around to addressing at some stage. As I said, the app is coming up on 2 years old. They're constantly developing these things, so hopefully you'll get these features added. And then again, it's down to, I suppose, us as the community who really use these apps to give them the feedback. Get on their case and be dropping them emails. And sorry, just while I noticed there's a question after coming in. Just I'll address that. Would you have to have a high-spec phone for this app? The requirements are that your phone has a minimum of 2 gigs of RAM, and it's running Android version 6 or later. So that kind of covers a good proportion of the phones that are out there. So there's plenty of phones now, with 4 gigs, 3 gigs, 4 gigs, and even 6 and higher. And that kind of has been the standard kind of spec now for a few years. So unless you have a really old phone that you probably need to upgrade anyway, your phone should handle this, and some tablets will handle it as well.
Very good. Yeah. So overall, it seems a very good alternative to the Seeing AI app if you happen to be an Android user. It seems to have some of the same kind of difficulties as well. I noticed there with the currency, it also doesn't do coins. Yeah, it
doesn't do coins, just like its Seeing AI counterpart. However, Seeing AI does do the euros. And when I had €20 there and I put the camera onto it, it told me it was $20. I'm sure that's something that will be added to and sorted out in time to come. And then now I only give one quick sample there at the end of doing your scene explorer, and I just basically pointed it at my laptop and it read back that it was a laptop and tried to read some of the keys actually as well. So but I have tried it out with a few other things, and it is fairly detailed as well.
It's very good actually. I was testing that a little bit earlier on, and it got most things right, which was quite surprising. It did. I did notice with 1 or 2 things, it gave a very a kind of politician's answer, let's say. It decided, instead of telling me what the furniture was, it just said furniture. Which is a great answer.
It was never going to be wrong anyway.
Exactly. So I thought that was a great feature. Whoever designed that part of it and decided to put that in as your catch-all response was a great one. Very good. So overall, you'd say that this is kind of a pretty good alternative. I take it it's the same story as with Seeing AI. Seeing AI is obviously only available on the Apple products. Is this one only available on Android?
It is. It seems to be only available on Android for at the moment, and I like its Seeing AI counterpart. It's also free of charge. What else? There was one more thing I was gonna say about it. I think for users that have the select to speak on their Android phones, lately select to speak has got a bit buggy on a feature that it used to be able to do fairly well. Was if you took a photograph of, let's say, a poster of text or something like that, and you went into your gallery and you ran the select to speak over that photograph, it used to be able to read it out quite good. I noticed lately that it's like as if they've stopped working on it in Google. and it makes the phone a bit buggy. So I think the Google Lookout is probably going to take over, is probably poised as the thing to take over that feature. So anyone who's a Select to Speak user who traditionally took a photograph of some text and went into their gallery and ran the Select to Speak grab over the photograph, and they're getting issues now, this is probably the solution for you, to go for the Google Lookout app and run that instead.
Interesting. Yeah, very good. Very good. Okay. So great piece of technology there, great app to be able to use. Thanks very much for talking about that for us today, Daniel. You might as well stay with us if you can for the next part as well, because we're going to move on now to our tech help section. And Daniel, this one I might actually put to you while you're with us. So I'll read this out because there's a little bit in this, but basically it's to do with the blind shell phone and adding an email address into an email account. It says, many thanks for the feature on the blind shell mobile phone, and also for the weekly tips both on the live event and the newsletters, which are most welcome and extremely valuable. It was great to get that feedback to start off with. I wonder if you could assist on how to place mail onto the blind shell, as I've inserted my email address and password, but I receive an error message afterwards. Going into my Google account, searching under data and personalized, and finally security, I was unable to find a heading to enable me to allow the blind shell to facilitate emails. What's the story there that's most likely to be happening?
Okay, so there's changes in Google there over the last couple of years. Google as your provider of Gmail, and it basically improved the security surrounding Google accounts and Gmail. They've made it very, very secure. It's from things such as having phone, adding your phone number to it and things like that, just to get it even more secure. So basically they've turned off for legacy apps. They've turned off access to things like you might have used in the past, Windows Live Mail, or even some Braille note takers there, the client mail programs in them. So it kind of blocks out, and Blind Shell's client mail app as well. So all these are blocked by default from accessing your Gmail. So what you've got to do then is that, as the service user there rightly points out, that you've got to get into your Google account and you've got to go for the security settings in there. Now it's a little bit of a route about in here, because about half or 2/3 of the way down that page, you're going to come across a little button that you have to turn on. It's called allow less secure access, basically, and you have to. It's recommended that you leave that off. But in order for your mail clients to access your Gmail, you must turn that on. So basically, you're instructing your Google Gmail account to allow in these older apps, that you're okay with that. So it drops back to security, maybe back to pre-2017 levels when this extra security layer was put on the Google accounts. So that's where you are. You're very close there. So it's just it's turn on less secure access. That will. So I can imagine maybe a follow-up question that some might have then is, if you're allowing less secure access, how much of a risk is that in kind of everyday life? Is that actually making your phone vulnerable? Now it's more to do with making your Google account a little bit vulnerable. Now, a little bit vulnerable in the sense that if somebody else has has your email address and password, it's much easier for them to access it on other devices and platforms.
Yes.
But if you have a very secure password, you should be okay. I would feel, and if you haven't given that out to anyone, it should be okay.
Brilliant. Yeah, very good. Well, that's a great workaround there, and hopefully that answered that question that came in for us very nicely as well. So thanks very much for that, Daniel. We have one more question, which we might ask Sean to join us for as well. This one is: I recently purchased a new laptop and find that I need to press the FN key, or the function key, in combination with other keys for actions such as closing a window. So for example, function and Alt and F4. How can I use the function keys without having to press the FN key in Windows?
Hi, Jude. So there's a few solutions to this problem. It's a common problem with laptops that the function key is given a dual function. Like normally, you'd have to hold down function and F5 to turn up the brightness, for example.
Yeah.
And for like non-screen reader users who wouldn't use the F keys that often, they just have the function key sort of always on in the background for those keys. So you just press F5 and it'll turn up the brightness. It doesn't act as F5. And you have to hold the function key down and then use those F keys for it to get the original function. So on a lot of laptops, what you can do is you can press function and escape to lock the function back to its original configuration.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, if your laptop doesn't have that set up, sometimes there is in-software solutions that. But the best thing to do is, and unfortunately a screen reader can't access this, is when you're restarting the computer, you can go into BIOS mode, and it's not connected to the internet. It's not even in Windows. It's before it's in Windows, and it's where your clock settings are. And in there, you can actually turn your function keys back to normal.
Gotcha. Okay.
So often it's for that extreme fix, you do have to have someone sighted giving you a hand on that. And it can't even be done over the phone because like TeamViewer can't access a laptop that's not connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So it is something that, maybe control and escape when you're using it will lock the function key down. So every time you turn on the computer, you'd have to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Either control or escape, or function and escape, depending on the laptop. And if that doesn't work at all, then you have to go into the BIOS and change it from there.
So definitely worth trying that function and escape or control and escape first, because it's the kind of easy, straightforward route.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the BIOS thing we can understand is maybe a bit more of a problem. If the computer hasn't had a chance to actually load up a screen reader, then you're not going to be able to access.
And like if a person is there with their family, a silent assistance, they can always ring Labs and we can talk to their family member through how to get into the BIOS.
Good. Yeah, very good. And just a quick question there that's come in. Does changing the BIOS invalidate any warranty?
No, it doesn't. No, like the BIOS is like mainly like you can go in and change the time and date and some functions, like you can turn on which drive, if you have multiple drives in your computer, which is the main drive.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't change too many settings in the BIOS just so the computer works fine, but it doesn't invalidate warranty. You're just actually changing a setting, like your preference for that laptop.
Brilliant. Very good. Well, thank you very much for that answer, Sean, and Daniel as well, for helping us out with the tech help section this week. Of course, if anybody has any other questions to ask us, please do get in touch on labs@ncbi.ie. And if the live event is going on, you can still use the question panel on the right-hand side of Microsoft Teams. Very good. Now, next up on today's show, we have our Meet the Team section. And as we said earlier, this week we're talking to NCBI's Head of Advocacy and Communications, June Tinsley. You're very welcome, June.
Thanks, Jude. Nice to be here. I hope everybody's keeping well.
Yeah, everybody's kind of just getting through it at the moment, aren't they? Still just a little bit left to kind of endure of the major restrictions, hopefully, but we're getting by. How long have you actually been with NCBI, June?
I joined NCBI in April 2019, so I'm about 2 years in the organisation now.
Okay.
I joined as Head of Communications, and I was then asked to take on the advocacy side of things when Kevin left last year. Okay, so
you're based up in head office then in Dublin, is that it?
Yes. Now I obviously haven't been there for a while yet, but usually in a pre-COVID world, that's where I am based.
Yeah, that's it. The pre-COVID world is going to become our new dating system, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how we actually measure our calendar, yeah. So give us a little bit of an idea then, June, maybe of kind of life before NCBI then, what that entailed for you.
Sure. I suppose prior to joining NCBI, I was head of advocacy with Bernardo's, the children's charity. And before that, I was working with the Irish National Organisation of the Unemployed. So I've kind of always been in the charity space and kind of always in the space of trying to champion children's rights or issues around unemployment, or in this instance, issues affecting people with sight loss.
Interesting. Okay, so that's the kind of common thread throughout each of the different things. Do you find that working in that role in NCBI? So, for example, I know you were saying you were in advocacy before, but in terms of the communications element of that, is that quite a different thing working with NCBI because of the maybe accessibility concerns and things like that as you engage in the communications side of your role?
Yes, I suppose certainly the accessibility side of things is far more unique to people with sight loss than it would be in the other areas of my career. And also, interestingly, everybody has been a child, so they can kind of relate to the issues that are affecting children to some degree. I mean, obviously, from wearing my hat with Bernardo's, I was championing children's rights regardless for children who were homeless or experiencing abuse or domestic violence or problems in the education system or whatever the situation was. But everybody could relate somehow because they had been a child. Whereas in this situation, people being blind or vision impaired, it's such a low instance disability that there is a greater level of public understanding needed to help people kind of literally walk in their shoes more. And I think that's an important element to the work that I want to bring, is empowering people who are blind or vision impaired to speak up more about their experiences, so more people can literally have a greater understanding. And with greater understanding comes a greater chance to affect change when people finally go, oh, I never thought of it like that before. Oh, really? Yeah. And I suppose that is a unique feature to being advocacy when you're dealing with sight loss issues.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting perspective as well, to see that contrast there. So how do you kind of go about addressing that? Usually you were saying there about kind of bringing people on board to maybe give their experience. Is that often the most powerful way of helping somebody to grasp what this actually involves?
Very much so. I suppose it's trying to essentially educate and normalize the issues people face when they are blind or vision impaired. And in the last couple of since lockdown, one of the elements that I've been doing is kind of different podcasts, and the feedback I've been getting has been really positive, because it's chatting to people about different aspects of their lives, different passions that they have, and how they've had to either adapt their life because now they are living with a vision impairment, or they've had a vision impairment all their life and they don't know any different, and have just embraced their normal. And I suppose it's literally trying to educate members of the public, politicians, policymakers, all that kind of thing, on what are the issues and what can be done to solve it. I think COVID has certainly presented an opportunity to increase awareness, because COVID has brought such unique challenges to people with sight loss, because their tactile world has been compromised, and touching surfaces now brings added risks. And I suppose as we are all trying to adapt with social distancing and all that, I think it's been important for me, from a communications point of view, just to highlight the fact that if you're blind or vision impaired, people are unable to see the signage on the floor. They're unable to see the new traffic light system in shops, or where the queue starts and things like that. And it's asking the public to be mindful of that not everybody has the ability to see like other people, and just to have a little more compassion and empathy and understanding. And I suppose they, to me, are kind of core ingredients to affecting long-term change.
I'd imagine that was quite a challenge, particularly towards the start of the pandemic, when everybody was kind of panicking as to how they would employ different safety mechanisms, if you like, and different messaging and signage and all that sort of stuff, as they were kind of trying to, in general, society was trying to adapt to this and work out how we can actually live with this. I'd imagine that was something that was maybe overlooked quite a bit initially, that maybe there was quite a bit of extra work in helping people to understand that side of things, the sight loss side of things.
You're dead right. I mean, listen, 18 months ago, none of us knew what social distancing meant. So the reality was people and companies and government and everything are in total uncharted territory, essentially.
Yeah.
So NCBI, from an advocacy point of view, we're working with the HSE to make the app accessible with the help of NCBI Labs, of course. We were also kind of making sure some of the public messaging was going to be relatable to people with sight loss. We worked with some of the retailers to make sure their staff were going to be trained. So if they were at the door and an individual was trying to enter and the traffic light was red and an individual wouldn't be able to see that or whatever, to try and train the shop staff to make sure that they were just a little more mindful of the issues and how social distancing is virtually impossible when you're blind or vision impaired.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it is one of those things. It's like there's okay, people weren't able to sit down and plan months in advance as to how they were going to react to it. But on the other hand, it's vitally important that people do understand, and it's a matter of course almost to take into account those who maybe need a different way of communicating the same information as well. So yeah, really kind of interesting to hear your work in that. It sounds like a very wide and varied role, June. It sounds like there's a lot in it.
Oh, very much so. I suppose from the comms point of view, I suppose my job really is to promote all aspects of NCBI, be it NCBI technology or our breadth of services across the country or our retail, fundraising activities, everything. I suppose we have multiple ways to try and do that promotion, but we want to make sure we increase the brand of NCBI. And I suppose if that's the core function of the comms side, the core function on the advocacy side is to influence national policy and local service development to be more inclusive and accessible to people who are blind or vision impaired. And by access, I mean that in the broadest sense, be it employment, built environment, education, health, you name it. I mean, obviously people who are blind or vision impaired have access everything, just like anybody else. So I suppose our remit is to try and broaden the perception that NCBI is only there as a healthcare agency. It's so much broader than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like you say, there's quite a lot involved in that. One of the things, just as you mentioned, advocacy, it's kind of maybe one of the things that we've mentioned a few times on the live events in relation to maybe technology specifically, but it would have a broader kind of an impact as well. We've often mentioned the idea that, you know, if you're using a piece of technology, for example, and you either experience something that works really well or you experience something that doesn't work as well as you expect it to, the feedback is something that drives the change. The feedback is actually vitally important. What would you say about that? Is that something that actually works when people get involved like that? Is their voice heard? Does it bring about change?
It does, and I suppose I would highlight also that change can take a very long time, but incrementally it can build up to a tipping point where change happens on a bigger scale. But just to give a couple of examples, individuals have come to us kind of saying how the ATMs are not accessible, as an example. And certainly I know Kevin and some of the advocacy team would have liaised with some of the banks to try and get them to activate the audio features on ATMs. And some banks have made that transition, some haven't. But I suppose it's just a case of an example rather of how change can come about. I think it's also another case, and a gentleman was concerned about the accessibility features on Sky and his platform that he uses to watch TV. And we raised this issue with Sky, and it did lead to a change in that space. And I suppose in the recent past, there have been significant strides to make audio description more available on different platforms, be it Netflix or Sky or whatever. And I suppose those incremental feedback that those companies get does lead to greater choice of television production then being made for audio description. And the other thing I'd be interested is to highlight, through the advocacy work, we have literally a number of local advocacy network groups scattered across the country. And these groups are made up of individuals who use NCBI services. Some of them are probably listening to me today. And I was put out an invitation to others to join these local advocacy groups. Admittedly, they're meeting online at the minute due to COVID, but the hope is to return them back to a kind of a face-to-face platform. And the purpose of those local advocacy networks is to essentially mobilize that local collective voice, let them identify a core issue that's happening in their locality, and support them to try and make that change. If, for example, it's an issue around an access across a busy road, and the lack of audible lights or something like that, that we would work with that group to try and identify who the decision makers are in that space, and then assist them to try and put together a bit of a campaign to make the local authority a change in that area. We're also kind of encouraging local advocates to kind of come together and support some of the NCBI's national advocacy campaigns in the areas of employment, or in the areas of trying to tackle waiting lists, those kind of bigger picture issues, but nonetheless are relevant to people who are blind and vision impaired. So certainly, if anybody is interested in joining our local advocacy networks, feel free to do so by emailing campaigns@ncbi.ie.
Very good, brilliant. Yeah, so it sounds like there's a few kind of different projects and things like that you're already working on at the moment. I suppose the idea is always that there's an eye on the future. There's quite a big eye on the future as to where we can get to, as opposed to just where we are at the moment. So a lot of these projects will be kind of designed to help us get there as well, I guess.
Yes, and I suppose our end goal is, of course, to affect change at a national level. And that means influencing all the different government departments, all the politicians that go with it. Now, politicians, as you know, come and go, but we still need to leverage what their primary policies are at the minute to make them as best as possible, so that the next round of politicians that come in will continue with that policy and system and make it better and make it better. And I suppose that's why we do want to try and future-proof things, even though the political system is very, I suppose, short-term in lens, because the governments change. But we do want to kind of put forward solutions that are doable and relatable, and will ensure that it'll result in a better service or a better outcome for people who are blind and vision impaired.
Brilliant, very good. Well, on that note, I think that's a good point to conclude the interview on, because I think that really does kind of round up what the service is all about. We really appreciate you joining us today, June. I appreciate you're very busy at the moment, so thanks for joining us on the show today.
No problems, and thanks very much. And as I said, genuinely, if anybody is interested in joining the local advocacy networks, they're presently based in Cork, Limerick, Wexford, Dublin, Louth, Meath. And more information can be got by emailing us at campaigns@ncbi.ie.
Brilliant, very good. And of course, for anybody wanting to listen back to that interview as well, this interview will be on YouTube, so you'll be able to get this information again. Thank you very much, June. Appreciate that.
No problems. Chat to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now. So that was June Tinsley, NCBI's Head of Advocacy and Communications, and some interesting things going on there that June was able to tell us about. So we're nearly finished the show this week. We've just got a little bit of time to go through our quick tips for the week. Sean, we spoke about the updates to TalkBack recently on one of our live events. Can you tell us just a little bit more about one of the features of TalkBack?
Yeah, I just wanted to go through the kind of what iOS called a rotor. TalkBack now has a similar way of accessing that information, while in the past with TalkBack you had to swipe up or down to change the selection type. So it would always be on default. You'd swipe up until you got to headings, and then when you swipe left or right, that would go through the headings in the past. Then you'd have to swipe back up until you found default to navigate normally again. So it was a bit more cumbersome than using VoiceOver.
Yeah.
So recently Android have added something similar to the rotor, which means that, you know, swiping up or down will give you those commands. So currently now on the new version of TalkBack, if you are on a web page, for example, and you're swiping from left to right as normal, and that, you know, that's akin to tabbing and shift tabbing. If you swipe up and down quickly, it will actually go through a list, which is the same as turning a rotor. So if I swipe up and down quickly, it'll go from, you know, like links to voice rate to headings. And when it's on headings, I can just swipe up or down then, and I will move through the headings throughout that web page, and left or right will still work as tabbing and shift tabbing as normal. So it just makes it a bit more natural when you're navigating, and it's very similar to how people already use iOS.
Yeah, very good. So just repeat that command again, just for us. How do you get into that?
So when you're anywhere on the phone, if you swipe up and down like very quickly, it will actually change the selection. And you can do it the opposite way. You can do down and up very quickly to move through the list the other direction.
Okay, so that'll get you into it. Yeah,
it's actually easier, I think, than using the rotor, because the rotor, you need two fingers on the screen turning in opposite directions, and that's a bit confusing when you first start using an iPhone. While this is a much more straightforward version of changing that selection, just up and down very quickly.
Yeah, very good. So that kind of brings us back to almost parity, I suppose, with our quick tips, because we talked about the rotor before in one of our previous live events. So this is the equivalent, basically.
Yeah, and since Android have changed how it works on their phone, we thought we'd just reiterate that there for anyone who is using Android. And like Daniel was saying there about the improvements being made with Google and their OCR device, and then the improvements being made in Android. I think probably everyone will be getting one for Christmas, I think.
So it's actually great to be kind of hearing about some of these developments which are bringing the two systems a little bit more closer in line as well sometimes, because that can actually help if you're changing between one system and another.
And it was just when the question came in earlier on, it actually about to Daniel's question about like what type of phone do you need? Is it a higher spec phone? And Daniel was saying like you need 2 gigabytes of RAM for it to work, and like most phones do have 2 gigabytes of RAM, but as Daniel was saying, the cheaper phones wouldn't. Like if you're going to Tesco and you're spending €60 on your Android phone,
yeah,
it's going to be quite low spec. And this is probably some of the reason why Android do have, you know, sort of a slightly, you know, worse name than iOS in terms of people are out there buying maybe like a €70 phone that's, you know, much further down the line than something than a newer device, and you sort of get what you pay for in those situations. It's much like when we had our laptop discussions. So like if you were to spend even at 2/3 of the price you'd spend on your iPhone on an Android phone, you get great spec. And I think maybe even in the future, Jude, if people are interested, we could maybe do a similar video to the laptops and discuss like maybe phone specs and what to look for when you're buying a phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Great idea. Yeah, very good. Because that is, like you say, that is one of the, it's kind of like a pro and a con at the same time, isn't it? The range of values that you'll get out there does mean that everybody will get something, but it's also, yeah, you get what you pay for.
And I sense another round of the Android v iOS debate coming around.
I definitely think we're bouncing off the ropes here, Daniel. We're going to.
Yeah, well, it has been a year, Sean. I think Android 11 could save us.
I am a complete Android user, and definitely in the past I thought VoiceOver was easier to use, but the changes they're making in Android and the new features they're adding, it's kind of really catching up. So it's making it more appealing for me to to sort of, when I'm using that there, it's easier for me testing websites and that they're using Android than it was last year.
Yeah, well, that's kind of set up probably a couple of interesting parts for us. We'll have to revisit that debate as well at some point, the iOS versus Android debate, but also that idea of how to go about buying a new phone as well. I think that'll be a really good piece as well. So thanks very much for taking us through that,
I
Sean.
think a question just came in there, Jude.
Very good. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this. So I think it was a comment, was it, just that that'd be something that someone would be very interested in? Yeah, very good. So yeah, good bit of feedback straight away to support that. So we'll have to do something like that on one of our future live events. Very good. Thank you very much for taking us through that, Sean. That's a very useful tip. And that brings us pretty much to the end of our show. Other than just a couple of reminders, of course, if you want to get a hand with any of the things that we've spoken about on the show, or on any of the other shows that we've covered, of course, you can contact us. You can contact the Labs team from 9 to 5 Monday to Friday on 1850 92 30 60, or you can email labs@ncbi.ie, or you can contact the wider NCBI service if you call 1850 33 43 53, or email info@ncbi.ie. If you'd like to make a donation to support our services, you can also visit donate.ncbi.ie, and maybe you'd even like to sponsor one of our events. Well, you can do that as well by contacting us here at Labs, and that can help to keep our live events going. Now, what's coming up? Well, just to mention before we conclude today, that in a couple of weeks' time we have the bank holiday, obviously, at the start of April. So on April 6th, we won't be joining you for a live event. So just if you want to take note of that, we won't be with you on April 6th, but we do have a show in the meantime on March 30th. So we're back next week at the usual time, March 30th at 2:30 p.m. And coming up on some of our live events that we'll be talking about in the next few live events, we're going to be talking about accessible app development, what goes into that, what sort of considerations are in there, and how the process goes. That can be quite interesting, just to get a little bit of the background information of how that happens, and how maybe you can even get more involved in affecting change in the development process as well. So that's quite an interesting one. We will be bringing you the Sky accessibility features as well. That'll be coming up in one of our future live events, and also Microsoft accessibility particularly. Next week, we're hoping to talk to a representative from Microsoft, and if not next week, then we'll bring that in one of the imminent live events as well. So a good few subjects that we've got lined up to talk to you about in the coming live events. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening in those live events, as well as plenty more, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our website, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie if you'd like to sign up to the newsletter as well. So all that's left for me to do is to thank our guest today, June Tinsley, and of course, thanks to everyone listening in as well. And from the team here at NCBI Labs, goodbye for now, and we look forward to having you all back with us next week for another NCBI Labs live event.